little songbird, try to fly my way homeward with the melody, and I make the beat. Don't know where it'll take me, cause when I'm in the dark of night, I sing my way back to the light. Come along with me and your heart will see that a song changes everything. And the music is moving me forward on to brighter things, on to bigger dreams. Let the harmony carry me, even if the sky's falling down. I know the sound will lead me out. Come along with me and I know you'll see that a song changes everything. Oh, ooh, ooh.
Good morning. Welcome to Arts for the Health of It.
I'm just a little song.
Oops. Yep, let's keep going. I'm Catherine Partisini.
Yes, she is Catherine Partisini, and I am Andrea Vocab Sanderson, and welcome to Art for the Health of It. Or something.
Yes.
Something more melodic than that. Well, you're a vibrant woman.
As are you. I wanted to share my birthday cake with you that I had last week.
Oh yes, come on, bring it. I wish I really had a slice of it, but we'll take a picture for now.
We have a picture somewhere. Let's see.
It's colorful.
Maybe.
It's beautiful. It's decadent. It's rich.
Maybe we don't. Okay, well, it was chocolate. There it is.
Hey, look at that chocolate cake with those sprinkles.
It was 2 layers and it was delicious, and we somehow still have some in the fridge. We probably need to get rid of that.
Yes, or you could save it for next year. You could put it in the freezer and next year have an anniversary of this year.
That's what my mom would do. She freezes everything.
Repurpose it. And she's a wise woman. She's a wise lady. What's your mommy's name?
Irene.
That's nice.
Yes, she's the best.
Mama Irene.
What about yours?
My mother's name is Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. Beautiful. She goes by Elizabeth, or is there?
I mean, mostly Liz. So yeah, that's our mamas. Maybe we should ask Allison when she comes on, our wonderful guest that's coming on in just a few minutes, what her mommy's name is.
We need to know Richard's mom's name too. We're just gonna do all the mom names. It's not Mother's Day, so I don't know. We'll just share.
When we get that Mother's Day episode, it's about to be real. Maybe we should have one of our mothers on for Mother's Day.
Good idea. Okay, write it down.
We got to move off of all this mommy talk for now. So what have you been working on artistically? You got something that you want to share with us?
I do. Okay, so I recently took this virtual class with Hannah Garrison, who's one of Hearts Need Arts artists in residence, and she Hannah does a lot of things, but she's an instructor for an organization called ANCAN, which is short for Answer Cancer Foundation. And they offer a lot of peer-to-peer support groups for people from all different health or life situations. And they have some focus groups for particular types of cancer. But it's just an amazing way to connect with people from all over the place. And we got to do this Monet-inspired water lily painting. So there it is. And Hannah walked us through just step by step. Like this was within an hour and 15 minutes of how to create this painting. And you have people from all skill levels. And so that felt like a birthday celebration to me because I got to make some art.
You're creating new life.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. And we'll make sure to put the link to their site in the comments if you're interested in joining one of their groups. It's free. And they're just such welcoming people. So, yeah.
Yeah. I guess that would bring about a great sense of accomplishment, being able to create something so beautiful and I love it. It was really gorgeous.
Thank you.
Greens and blues and pretty pinks. I have a show coming up that is this Thursday at the Brick, the Blue Star here in San Antonio, called Mercuria, and it's a flamenco show, and it features Genevieve and La Memphi and Tamara and myself and Jose Manuel Tejeda. And it's going to be dealing with issues of domestic violence and abuse and for women. And so we are going to be talking about some of those issues today. And we do have a content warning for you all that if you are sensitive to those subjects, just be mindful. We will possibly be talking about some hard subjects regarding abuse and things of that nature. So we welcome you to stay with us and learn from our guest, who Catherine's just about to tell you who she is.
All right. So we're joined today by Allison Body, I believe from South Dakota. She'll correct me if I'm wrong. But Allison is she's so many things. She's an artist. She's a therapeutic art life coach and a health coach. She has so much to share with us today. So we're going to bring her on.
Welcome, Allison.
It's Allison. Yeah, we need to applause.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Tell us where you are for people that aren't watching. Kind of describe where you are.
Yeah, so I am first and foremost in Rapid City, South Dakota. But more specifically to my exact location right now, if you can't tell from some of the background noise, I'm actually at my horse rescue that I founded and run. It's called War Horse Liberation. Yes, we are a horse rescue, but first and foremost, we provide free equine assisted therapies to veterans. So I'm coming to you live from outside the stall of Blue.
And before we hopped on this morning, we were admiring your internet connection and your sound quality, but it's so beautiful. It's like bright blue sky, and yeah, you can see
no clouds,
no clouds,
and you can tell the wind is blowing through her golden tendrils of hair, and their horses are back there, and it just looks like it is a serene oasis of,
South
farm.
Dakota. Yeah.
And as we'll talk about later, I love being where I feel grounded and feel comfortable. And this is definitely one of those places for me. So I felt that it was appropriate for me to be here to help keep me centered, to keep my energy up as well. And hopefully to also provide some other people a good backdrop.
Definitely.
That was one of my questions I was going to ask you, actually, was like, because you spend so much time in nature, like, where is you're just like a place where you feel such an extreme amount of peace, or like you said, the grounding? And I guess that kind of answers that question right there at the horse rescue.
The horse rescue is definitely one of them, but my favorite places is to be up in the hills, up in the mountains. And here we have the Black Hills. So they're really old mountains, so they're not as big as Montana or Colorado by any means, but there's something just about being lost, kind of, or quote unquote lost in the woods, and just kind of not having a soul around other than like maybe like your loved one. So yeah, being out in the hills is one of my go-to grounding places.
I want to back up a little bit, and if you could tell our listeners a little bit about your story and how you came to where you are.
Yeah, I would love to. So I am a domestic abuse survivor. So I was married to somebody that just did not treat me right. And actually it led to my death in April of 2017. I was dead for 33 seconds. And I had made several attempts to leave that marriage up until that point. And then after that death, I kind of came back with a renewed sense of purpose of not just getting myself where I need to be, but to also help other women overcome their traumas and their challenges as well. So for me, it took a couple of years to really get myself centered, get myself feeling confident again, to feel like I was worthy, to feel like I had a purpose in this life. So now I'm here in Rapid City, South Dakota. Was originally in Savannah, Georgia, so half a country away from where all my trauma happened. But I experienced, unfortunately, a lot of different types of trauma. So I do resonate with a lot of what people go through, whether it's mental, emotional, physical. And I use that for myself as more as a motivation. So for me, I've been able to turn my trauma around to help others and use it to show that, you know, we don't need or deserve to be treated that way, and that all of that only makes us stronger people at the end of it.
Wow.
Mm.
So I guess I would like to know, what were some of the first steps you took when you were starting the I'm going to help other women and other people heal
Mhm.
from being abused? What did you do first?
Yeah. So when I first left that marriage, I was in personal training, and my hope and my dream was to, how do I help those who've been through trauma? And therapy for me didn't work. I never felt like I was heard, never felt like I was understood. So I wanted to find that alternative from therapy. So I did a lot of research, went through, actually, that's when I went through my health coach certification. I got a job originally as a health coach, but health coaching doesn't quite touch on all the areas I wanted to. So really it was more of a self-exploration of like, what does this look like? What am I visioning? And then putting myself through those practices first and foremost to create essentially a roadmap and to ensure that what I'm learning actually works in real life. And I know each person is so different. So it has to be customized and has to be tweaked around, because what might work for me may not work for you, because there needs to be slight tweaks. You resonate differently with either exercises or areas. My grounding location might be different from your grounding location. So for me, it was going through and doing that deep dive into my thoughts and my beliefs in myself, and recognizing that our brain is first and foremost the one thing that we need to change, and that is where we store our trauma, a lot of it. And trauma actually, in a lot of the research I was reading, interestingly, changes our brain. It changes our thought patterns. It changes how our brain wires and fires. And so people who have been through trauma, whether that is PTSD, whether it's physical, whether it's mentally emotional, it actually changes the way that we think, and it puts us in a constant fight or flight mode. So our cognitive abilities are down. We're more prone to be stressed out, and so therefore it's harder for us to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, because that's just how our brain is wired. And so I went through this really in-depth and uncomfortable journey to work to rewire my brain, to change my beliefs in myself, to change my mindset. And that's honestly one of the toughest parts when we're going through this, is our brain is so powerful, and what we visualize and what we constantly think will be. So if you're telling yourself that you're not good enough, unfortunately, that is going to be the outcome. And so you have to change that thought process of, you are good enough, you can achieve this, and then putting that into practice. And so I went through that. It was a tough journey, like I mentioned. And so once you are able to change your brain and your thought process and your beliefs in yourself, then it's easier to address some of those other key aspects and try to work to build up that confidence from there.
Mind renewal.
Do you feel like that's an ongoing process for you? And I imagine your clients as well, because it's I I was diagnosed with PTSD a few years ago. I didn't really know what it was until someone kind of explained to me, like, this is what's going on. And but even once you know that, it's not like a, oh, that's what it is, I can fix it now. And so I'm curious, kind of, yeah, if it's this ongoing process for you and how you guide your clients through that.
Yeah, it 100% has been a ongoing journey. And even for me, I was telling my group and some of my clients, even like this past weekend, had like this whole bout of, just not feeling like I was doing what I needed to, or not feeling like I was worth, that person. Like, who makes me, this expert? And I had to kind of go through and list out the positives and the things that I have accomplished, of like, I have these certifications, I have this background story. And so one thing I love doing with my clients is creating visuals that you can put up in your home to constantly remind you, because you do have to constantly remind yourself, like, even if you fully believe that you are worth it and that you are here for this purpose and that you are going to change lives, you're still going to fall into that negative mindset of like, but why me? Like, what makes me qualified for this? And so
Yeah.
having those constant reminders and visualization, and I've mentioned to you before, but one of my favorite research projects I looked into was about visualization, and it talked about these athletes who did nothing more than in their training. All that they changed was visualizing their performance before their sporting activity, and they found that they increased their performance by 30%. So again,
Wow.
the power of our brains is so incredible. And so tapping into that and creating those visuals, or even I've had several clients write down affirmation words or sentences on their mirrors, so when they're getting ready in the morning, they're constantly reminding themselves of their strengths and what their purpose is.
Wow. We do have to do those affirmations, because affirming is a testimony to yourself and a testimony to others. Uh, Before we started the show, Catherine and I were kind of talking about questions we could ask. And I had a question and I was having such a hard time phrasing it. And you kind of spoke on it a little bit, but I was wondering if you could elaborate. When you're in a situation, what advice would you give to people who, as they're trying to help other people work through their traumas, they find themselves being triggered again, watching other people? Like, what's the process? Is it a step back? Is it talk
Mhm.
to someone else? Like, how do you, what, you know, because you're constantly dealing with other people in the muck of things, and you've healed, you've gone through what you need to go through, but it's reintroduced to you. Like, what's your advice to them if they're trying to help others?
Yeah, that's a great question. And protecting yourself is probably, in my opinion, one of the most important things. And so my recommendation is to make sure that before you go in front of others, or before that appointment, to make sure you ground yourself, to go through those motions of not just going through your affirmations, but like doing a mindful practice of why you are there to help them, and to also remind yourself to block it. You want that energy to be receptive, but you also don't want to absorb their problems, because that's not going to help them and it's not going to help you. And so it's actually more of a mindful practice that I personally go through, of almost a meditation before my appointments and before any event that I go to make sure that not only am I grounded, but that my energy is protected, so that way people could feel it, but I'm not absorbing theirs.
It's real, balancing that empathy versus putting yourself there to be as a conduit to let the healing flow through you. It's weird and hard space to do, but I commend you because you're doing great work. And now,
And now we're going to take a quick break. Before we do, just real quickly, you're going to guide us through one of the activities you use with your clients. What do people need for this?
Yeah. So any medium would work. So it could be a paper and pens. It could be pencils. It could be acrylic
Vocab
set.
hazard markers.
Yeah, or markers. So whatever you're comfortable with working in, that's the first thing I always recommend, is find a art medium that you're comfortable with, because it makes that process a whole lot easier. So I love watercolor and I love acrylic painting. And so that's been my mode for these exercises. But I've had people even just do, pencil stick figures, and that is acceptable. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back with this activity.
Fresh out of luck. Yeah. There's no genie in the lamp, no lamp to rub, no wishbones to break. But I can't give up, no. I can't give up. And I wish, and I wish, I wish, I wish.
And we're back. And that was vocab. We didn't introduce the song. I'm so sorry.
Nope, we
Beautiful.
didn't. It's called I Wish, and it's featuring Nick Blevins, and it's a good song. And we recorded the video at Luminaria. But back to Allison Body, who's gonna lead this workshop, this little exercise. Yeah, that's the best I can do.
I
I'm
love
sorry.
your energy. You just it helps so much.
It's the best.
Thanks.
All right. So I think we have the PDF. We'll make sure that people have access to. I don't know if we're showing it on screen, but go ahead and start to walk us through what this activity is.
Yeah, so this activity is the keyhole exercise. And I love this because it could represent so many different things. Of one, where you're at, maybe what it's blocking you. It could be physically, emotionally, and then also, taking that view into the keyhole of where you want to be. And so this exercise is a visual, and it's something that I've done for actually almost 100 people now. And it's one of my favorite exercises because it's such a great visual to have as a reminder for yourself of where you're going, and to keep your eyes on the prize and to keep your focus. So when you're having a tough day, you could look at that and just remind yourself of what you're working towards. So the keyhole exercise, long story short, is essentially a keyhole. So it takes up most of the page, and which I have that one, I'm sorry, a little lighter so that way you can actually see your artwork. But the keyhole is looking into what you're wanting in your life. So whether that's a physical place you're wanting to go to, whether that's a emotional recovery you're trying to go through, like whatever that looks like what do you want your future to be? Again, it could be physical, mental, emotional. It could be a job. So you're looking into what you want. And then the door itself is what you feel is that barrier in getting to that end game. And so it could be, again, a physical place. It could be maybe a emotion that you feel that is blocking you from getting there. And whatever that emotion may look to you on paper, I've had people just do black scribbles because they feel like their emotions are so chaotic. And that worked for them, and it helped to remind them of like what they're working through. And again, it could be a physical place. Maybe you're in a physical place that you don't love and you want to go somewhere that you feel more grounded in, or you feel more at ease in. And that's why I love this exercise, because it looks so different for everybody.
Do you usually have clients journal a little bit first before they do this, or they just dive in and start drawing?
A mixture of both. So I leave it up to them, but I do have a few prompts, like as we're going through it, similar to how I just kind of described it. Is, think about what that barrier is. Maybe come down with a few key words or places of what you're feeling. So that way they have an idea of what they're drawing, at least for the barrier. And then for inside of the keyhole, where are they wanting to be in a year or 2 years? What does that look like? What does that emotion look like? Is it a place, or is it a new job, a new situation? And a lot of times I've had people not even do a full picture. It's just things that they were, wanting for the future, which was like their own apartment and a better job. And so they actually represented that in a way for them that spoke to them. And so being able to, first and foremost, create the piece that works for you. There is no one right answer, and perfection is one word I want to throw out the door, because that does not belong here. It's all about what works for you and all about what speaks to you.
So if they're participating inside the keyhole goals, the future goals, the wants, the desires, the best case scenario for what you're trying to attain. And then outside of that keyhole is the things that are blocking you and stopping you from attaining that, or just you feel like is a barrier that you have to push past in order to get to that space.
Yeah. And I actually brought an example with me today to kind of show you what my personal keyhole looked like about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. So let me take a step back so you can see this. So this is my personal keyhole.
Oh my gosh.
When I painted this, I was actually living in Chicago with my partner, who was doing his master's. I am not a city person. And it was at the height of COVID. My car had gotten stolen, my bike was stolen, and it was just a very chaotic time. And so my only hope when I lived in Chicago was to get out of Chicago. So for me, my barrier was the brick jungle. Being in the city, I hated it. And so like when I see the brick, it just almost brings up like that feeling of like how much I did not enjoy being in the city. I'm definitely a rural girl. Like I live and belong in the mountains. That's who I am. And so that's why in my keyhole, I put the mountain where I feel at peace, where I go to be grounded. Like, where's my escape from the feelings I'm having, which is, anxiety and claustrophobia and a little bit of uncertainty. Like, that was what these bricks represented to me being in the city. And the mountain and the lakes and the trees is the place that I felt most grounded, most at peace. And that was what I was working towards. And Chicago was never a permanent location for us, but it was a reminder for me of like, this is where I'm going. I'm not going to stay here in the city. I'm not going to stay in this feeling of uncertainty. I am going to eventually get back out into the woods, into the mountains where my heart is calling for. And so that's just a one example of, what the keyhole may look like. And so, maybe, it's really just the location, and that location is causing these feelings and emotions. And that's what this was for me.
I think what's interesting too about this activity is it reminds me a little bit of doing a vision board. But I think what's different about this is that vision boards are fun and great, but you're not always necessarily also visually depicting what you feel like is holding you back. It's very future focused. Like, I want this and this, I want to bring more peace, all these things, but it's kind of floating out in space. And like, it's important, I think, as you were saying, for our brain to acknowledge, like, this is what's in front of me right now, getting in the way of that. So I think that's part of what makes it really powerful.
Yeah. And one thing I've noticed, and this is not true for all people, but when people are only focused on the future, they become dreamers and not doers. And so this was a way to not only keep that dream alive, but recognize that there needs to be a doing in that process. Like, what's holding you back, and remind yourself what you're going to do to overcome it. And so that my biggest advice for everyone as they're doing this is don't get caught up on the barrier. That's why the barrier is the smallest part of this entire painting, drawing, pencil, whatever your modality you're using. That's why that's the smallest. You want to stay focused on where you're going, but recognize that there are going to be barriers, but that you are strong enough to achieve it.
Well, yeah. Do we want to share?
We do.
I think maybe Richard has a picture of mine. So I did this ahead of time so that we'd have time to share. But mine it's kind of a mix. It's like collage, colored pencil, watercolor. There's a mix of things. And if you're listening and not watching, the background or like the barrier for me is a computer because I spend a lot of my time, I work remote, which is such a blessing. But there are times where that becomes a barrier to me having time to be outside, which is where I feel the most refreshed and connected to God. And so I collaged my keyhole on top of that computer. And it's kind of like a view of the water. We live in Biloxi, and so we're very close to the beach. So it was really interesting because I don't feel totally like I get to do amazing things in the work that I do, but it's also maybe not enough balance of the other piece of getting time to just be outside. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It really is beautiful. All right. I guess I got to share.
It's your turn.
Okay. So if you can see inside the keyhole is me on stage in front of a great audience of people, packed show. And on the outside is a bed and me sleeping and resting and dreaming and not actualizing the dream by physically getting up and doing something. And then I wrote an acrostic poem to accompany the image. And the word going down is keyhole. And here is the poem. keeping time with my dreams of endless nights and stage lights, yelling and screaming applause beams of halos blinding my eyes from sight, ovations unzipped at the seams of love, unmeasured and treasured night. Enveloping inspiration is unlocked. I catch a gleam of an opened keyhole vision to my future life.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Beautiful. You are a visual artist. If you're listening and not watching, you need to watch the episode because vocab your artwork. It's amazing.
Thank you very, very, very much for that affirmation. It's cool, like trying to create. I guess because I used to watch like Project Runway, and they would talk to them about creating your own personal textile, and so like creating a pattern of some sort. I think for people who are not, they don't think that they're drawers, they don't think that they're painters. Find a way to create a pattern in your work that you can have reoccur. That might help you, unless you're just like, I'm doing straight up abstract and everything's going to be seemingly arbitrary. But you know, that helped me to be like, oh, I'll just do a whole bunch of little Z's and to represent the sleep, and that'll become
effective. It's totally effective because it created that barrier, that sense of a barrier. So really cool.
Completely. And one thing I love about this exercise, all the exercises and art in general, let me just say art is amazing because it becomes our voice. And I know I mentioned to you previously I am not a emotional person. I used to joke around, like, I'm not all about that feely stuff. But when you're going through not even just traumas, but when you're trying to create a dream, make that dream happen, you have to figure out how to voice those emotions, whether it's, to a therapist or to yourself. And for me, I don't always have the words to express what I'm feeling, to express what, challenges I'm having or how happy I am. And so art becomes that. Art becomes my language of expression, because I could take some of those thoughts that maybe I don't have words for. Maybe I have just like images in my head of what it kind of looks like. And I could put that into my piece of a way to really express what I'm really feeling deep down.
Yeah, and I want to hear more about your artistic process because you do create some really amazing things. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back and hear about that.
Ose shalom bin Ramav, Huya ase shalom, Alenu be'akol Yisrael, V'emru. Amen.
We are descendants apart, the most tragic moving art. Broken glass, best beware. Crystal knock, no crystal stare. Blitzkrieg everywhere. Beautiful bodies drop like bombshells. Without a German care, without a human care. We have a burden that we share. DNA of descendants, no recompense or repentance. We've been in a state of emergency for centuries. Our people bleed. My neighbors weren't my enemies. Internment labor. Harbor them from my enemies. It's like we're standing at the Red Sea chanting freedom, but Pharaoh won't set us free. Pharaoh won't let us be the burden of color, the burden of creed, the burden of bloodline weighs heavy on our seed.
Heavy content. We didn't even say anything. We just went into this really heavy piece, and I was like, that one is hard. That one's hardcore. It's a song that draws the parallels between the Jewish Holocaust and enslavement of Black people in America, and how we can overcome some of those things. And that song's called "The Burden." Yeah. Featuring Tamara Adira, which we didn't get to her part, but if you're watching, you can see her dancing in that. But back to Allison Body and the question that was posed before we went to that break, which is your process, your artistic process, and what comes from it.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And I have found that it's changed over time. So in my younger years, my parents actually paid for art docents. I actually went through like specialized art classes, and expressing art was so easy and effortless, and it was easy for me to express a lot of those feelings. And after, all the traumas I've experienced in my life, I shut myself down from art because it made me feel a lot of those emotions that I was keeping locked up in a box. Because it's easier when I first left to pretend like it never happened, to pretend like I was okay and just kind of move on. And so getting back into art, and even still now that, that I've recovered and I'm helping others and it's become a big part of my life again, is I go in with a purpose of what am I wanting to create, or sometimes it could be just if I'm feeling a lot of emotions I need to get out, like because I don't know how to voice it. But a prime example, kind of just regularly when I'm out there creating pieces just for myself, is I first think about, okay, what am I feeling now? Like what emotions are in there that could potentially help somebody else, because every piece that I create comes back to our emotions, and I want to be a therapeutic art piece for somebody else where they look at that and like, I resonate with that because of the feeling that I had to overcome. And one of my favorite pieces is Phoenix Rising, which was a acrylic art pour. And so before I started that is, again, what emotions am I feeling? What am I trying to represent in this piece? And then I assigned colors to those emotions and utilized them within my art piece, and was able to create something that to me spoke of Phoenix rising from the ashes. So my world had fallen apart. The background is black. I felt like my life was nothing but ashes, but that I'm rising from that. And sometimes from the ashes is the most beautiful things. How many forests have we seen that after complete obliteration, it comes back even stronger because of the ashes. Ashes are actually nutrients. It's nitrogen, and we need that to live. And so that's one thing that I love doing, is just recognizing where I'm at, even if I'm angry. Sometimes those angry pieces, have a purpose, but being able to put that purpose into the piece. And then once I create it, reflecting with where I'm at now. And I know I joked around before, I'm not very much a feely person. I'm not all about emotions. But when it comes to the, art, it's such a great way to really express all those things that you don't want to tell other people, all those things you don't want other people to know, but then it just comes out into this piece, and they may not recognize what that means to you. They may see themselves in that, and that's what I love about it. But yeah, so my process is recognizing just where I'm at and creating a piece for where I'm in that moment.
It reminds me so much of so our founder Stanzi, who founded Hearts Need Art. She shares this story about when she was going through cancer treatment. She looked forward. They had these art classes, and she looked forward to going because it allowed her this safe space to express the things that she couldn't. And basically, what you're saying, that she did not have the words for at the time. And so it's just it's amazing how that shows up a lot with just humans in general, if we allow it to. But I wanted to ask real quick, do you feel like your earlier art making days, like the type of art you made then, is it very different from what you do now? Like, was it more representational? How did that shift?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I first started in my younger years, it was all very realistic. I love drawing horses. Horses have always been my passion. And so that was, my primary focus was realistic pencil drawing. So it was all pencil, lead, charcoal. And that was where I thrived. And I find that now it's more abstract because I have so many different emotions, and it's harder to put a realism to a lot of what I'm feeling, and that sometimes that abstractness kind of reflects where maybe I'm at, or maybe what I'm feeling. Or there's been times where in talking with others, like I might be inspired by what they told me. So now I do a mixture of all of it, where I love the abstract from like the acrylic pours and just letting life happen to it and seeing what comes of it sometimes it's almost therapeutic, of like letting it go, picking this emotion in this color and you're letting it go and seeing what life does with it. But then I do still love doing more realistic. Sometimes it really depends on my mood. One thing I love doing is puppy portraits for people, and I should say pet portraits, because I've done more than just dogs, but I do it in rainbow colors. So whether that dog's passed or still with, I love vibrancy. And one thing I noticed is when I first went through trauma, everything was not vibrant. It was just kind of black because that's where, I was at emotionally, and that's perfectly okay. But now I want color in my life. And so I've noticed I've used a lot of like those rainbow tones with some of the things that I'm doing.
Yeah, there's such a freedom that comes with color, and just allowing your mood and where you are aesthetically to just dictate a little bit more what you're creating, and that process, and how it opens us up. And what I found is that in different parts of my life, different colors represent different things. So what yellow used to represent to me is not necessarily what it represents to me today. What green used to represent to me has changed. Do you find that colors and the meanings for them change, and even the symbolism in your work? Do you feel like the symbolism has evolved?
100%. And so you had mentioned my workbook at the very beginning, and that's one thing I
Yes.
actually go through an exercise with all of my clients, is to have them define what each color means to them, to have them go through and the symbolism. So what does a tree mean for you? So if you put a tree into your piece, what does that represent? What does a flower represent? And so there's all these different things that I have them go through to figure out what it represents to them, so that way that piece speaks to them. And then at the end, we kind of reconvene and go back and see if those definitions still hold true, and found that a lot of it has evolved, and I don't want to say improved, but just has evolved as they go through and they work on their emotions and they let go of some of that hurt and fear, that a lot of that meaning does change for them.
The design for your workbook, I think we have a picture of it. It's rainbow. It's beautiful. We'll see if it comes up on screen. But do you want to talk a little about this workbook and also your coaching sessions?
Yeah. So this workbook is a blend of everything. So this was my way of creating something that can be in self-help for others. And it's called The Art to Your Dream Life. And it utilizes all of the art therapy, or not all, but some of the art therapy exercises that I use in my coaching sessions. And it helps you not only go through what behavior change is, what that looks like, what setting SMART goals means and looks like, but it also goes through changing some of those negative beliefs, like what some of those exercises may be, creating art pieces that speak to you, your affirmation art, and also stress relief with like mandalas. So this book is a all-encompassing of what I do. So my coaching is I help women who've experienced trauma to let go of that fear, to increase their self-confidence and their self-worth, and to help them build that life that they deserve. And this book takes a lot of those coaching principles from my 90-day program into this book itself, so that way they can go through that practice on their own. They can address some of those fears or some of those tough emotions maybe on their own. Maybe they're not ready to work with another person, but they're ready for a change. And so that's what this workbook has essentially grown into. And it's I'm going to be honest, I'm not normally a writer, so it comes out like my own speaking. And so I would say it's a little bit more of a relaxed workbook. But it does ask you to, again, to find what represents to you, like what do those colors mean? What do those shapes mean to you? So as you're creating those pieces, you can utilize that.
That's wonderful.
And Richard has put the link to that in the comments if you'd like to. Thank you for giving us access to that. And if people want to book a coaching session with you, you're offering, is it a free 30-minute?
Yeah. So that link will get you that workbook completely free. So that way you can go through and start working on improving yourself. And then I am also giving away a free 30-minute coaching session where maybe you just kind of want guidance, or reflect on some aspects, or whatever it is that you need. That 30 minutes is essentially for whatever you need. Even if it's just the vent, I'm here for you. So you get the free workbook and a free 30-minute session with me.
That's really kind and generous and thoughtful of you. I love what you said about the things that we deserve, because we talk ourselves out of a lot of things that we do deserve. And it's really beautiful that you are reminding people, um, and asking them questions that hold them accountable to speak to their dreams and speak to the things that hinder them, so they as we acknowledge those things, we can empower ourselves and move past and overcome.
Mhm.
And you say it's always a constant mind renewal, always constantly going back to reflect on where we currently are and where we want to be. And it's so great to see you put it in the context of artwork.
Yeah. What is
Thank you.
the best way for people to connect with you if they want to learn more about what you do and who you are and all the wonderful things?
Yeah. So I do have a Facebook page where I post, tips and advice, some other free resources as well. It's called Allie's BAM Workshop. So ALLIES BAM Workshop. So you can find me on Facebook there. I also have a free Facebook group where it's called Women Helping Women Overcome Trauma. And again, it's a space for women all to come together to show support. So whether you've already overcome your trauma and you want to be a support for other women, or maybe you're in that moment with trauma and you need that safe space, this is a free group that is solely designed again for women to help each other, really not just overcome trauma, but to empower each other. So I do have that community as well.
Thank
Wonderful.
you. Great resource.
We'll make sure that we have all those links posted in the comments so people can connect with you and the community you've created.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, Allison, thank you so much for being here with us today. It was just such a joy to learn more about you. And if you're listening and not watching, you need to watch, because you have to see where Allison is. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful getting to know both of you guys and having this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
Ooh.
magical woman.
I feel like I need a minute just to absorb all of that. Oh my goodness. We actually have another quick break, I believe. Let's see if we can get this right. This song is by one of our musicians in residence, Jeff Wood. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
'Cause you're magic. Everything about you is magic. Every little piece of you is magic. I for one know I gotta have it. Every single day it's tragic to know that other people don't have it nearly as good as I have it. 'Cause being with you is pure magic. Every single day. Keeping up with you never ends. You go till you're gone. We never end up where we began. I never can tell how far we'll go. Into your dreams, your heart and your soul. 'Cause you're magic.
That's awesome. I called her Magic, and then I had no idea that was going to be the name of the song that came on, but Allison was really a magical person, and it's great that she's helping people to create some magic in their heart and in their life. And I think I really needed that Keyhole exercise today. And I hopefully you all created something that you feel really good and confident about. And if you didn't finish it, you've got all day. You can finish it.
And same, similar thoughts. When I was doing that project, I was like not really sure what was going to come of it. And I think sometimes it's easy to underestimate how important it is, whether it's writing or making art, to just get it out of the brain space. It's just like very abstract, and letting it move through you and get out onto the paper. So I would encourage everyone to give it a try. There is if you're like, I can't draw a keyhole, Allison has provided a template that you can use for that. You could print it out and create your own.
So we just let us know you want it, and we got you. Well, we had some awesome comments that have happened recently, and I think we're going to look at some of those and acknowledge some people who have been viewing. And thank you so much for your viewing and your listening support as we do this wonderful show.
Yeah, so we have this was from your episode, Vocab, your book giveaway. You gave away one of your poetry books, and we have a picture that the lucky winner won. It says, "Thank you so much. Vocab's written word is so illuminating and inspiring. This book of poems and songs has really enacted a perspective shift in how I approach my day-to-day and my relationships with the people around me. Thank you for sharing your gifts with all of us, Vocab." And that's from Katie. She was so excited.
Katie. And she had a great smile on the picture and just vibrant. I downloaded that picture. I'm going to look back at it, and I needed it this morning. I think I got 2 to 3 hours of sleep total. I could not sleep last night.
Oh, goodness.
And so, yeah, it was a rough night. And then it started raining like first thing this morning. It was like raining pretty loud. And so once I started listening to the rain, I was like, there's no way I'm going back to sleep now, listening to that. And normally soundscapes of rain put me to sleep, but this morning it was having
the opposite effect. That makes your keyhole barrier like even more true with all, with all the Z's all over it. Yeah. But you have an event coming up tomorrow. Would you like to share?
I do. So you call him the Dr. Cornell West will be at McAllister Auditorium at San Antonio College for the Alamo College District for the Day of Racial Healing. It is a day of solidarity, racial healing, and narrative change. And he will be being spoken to and with by Dr. Eric Castillo. And before that, myself and Tanisha Payne, who is an amazing dancer, we will be presenting like a multidisciplinary piece leading into that about recovering self and knowing who we are and speaking some affirmations to people after we deal with some tough issues in the first piece. And I'm so excited about that. And it can be streamed because they don't have seats open. There is a link on my Facebook page for that, or you can go to San Antonio College or Alamo College's Facebook page and you can register to stream the talk. And I'm sure it'll be on their YouTube channel within a couple of weeks as well. And so the conversation starts around noon and the event ends at 2:00. So that's Central Standard Time for those who are wondering where we are. I'm in San Antonio.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
What are you looking forward to the most for that event?
I'm going to be freaking out, but
okay. That's fair.
Just anything from Dr. West, his perspective is brilliant. He's spoken all over the world on these very topics, and he has such an amazing insight. And, we just need this encouragement to continue the work that we do. We're all called to do something else. We all, so many things, and we have multiple purposes, but I know one of my purposes is about being a bridge and helping to unify different people groups and people from different walks of life. And so just getting some affirming information from him and encouragement to continue that work is really something that I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. Okay, what do we have coming up next week on Arts for the Health of It? Do we know? Next week is
our recap.
Yeah, it'll be our Hearts Need Art highlight. I believe we'll get to meet we have 2 new board members that we want to introduce you to. We'll hear from our CEO, Richard Wilmore.
The aerodynamic hair that he has.
Yeah, we need
He's bringing that hair right here. And you're going to get to see it. You're going to get to hear his beautiful voice as he tells you about all the growing things. We're going to talk about growth. And which is, I think that's always an ongoing thing with the show. Is just like, how do we grow as people? But we're going to spend some specific time, targeted, focused, talking about growth.
Yes. And I think we'll have some writing and art to go with next week's episode. So make sure you have, even if it's just a notebook and a pencil handy, that's really all you need. If you want to add colors, bring markers, crayons, things like that. But yeah, bring some supplies with you so you can participate. Let's see, what else we got going on? You'll also hear from some of our Hearts Need Art artists and some of the experiences they've been having with patients in the healthcare communities that we serve. And we always want to just be able to transport everyone into those patient interactions so they can witness what happens in those moments. And so our hope is that by sharing artist reflections, we can kind of give you a glimpse into what that experience is like, from a patient that is like, I'm not an artist, I'm not a writer, I can't do this, to actually creating something with someone from our team. So we're excited to share that as well.
I'm telling you, it brings so much fulfillment to you when you create something new, when you open the door to your creativity and allow yourself that permission to just dwell in that space for a little bit, because we're blocking it up with adulting a lot of times and responsibilities, the stress of our life and the things that kind of come in that loom over us. But we can start to strip some of those things away by adding the color and adding the narrative and voicing it, whether it be singing or drawing, painting. Even if you're just like, but I'd rather do something else. Okay, do dance, cook, the culinary arts, the physical kinesthetics of just getting active, whatever you feel like you want to do to express yourself. We are here to encourage you as you do those things. And, I'm going to segue into what we're going to do to close up the show, which is in a few minutes, right as we're going to go into the wrap up. You'll see one more song from me, which is the Nouveau, which is about being art in motion. And we need to consider ourselves all art in motion. The video features Tanisha Payne and a good friend of mine named Carlton. And it's just, the whole video is about just valuing art in your life.
All right. Make sure you like or subscribe or follow us wherever you are listening or watching Arts for the Health of It. Until next week, keep creating, everyone. See you next time.
Subscribe.
Thank you for listening to Arts for the Health of It. This episode is produced by Hearts Need Art, creative support for patients and caregivers. You can support the show and help others learn about the healing power of the arts by visiting heartsneedart.org. The views expressed on this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Hearts Need Art, their staff, board members, or other affiliates. All content is created for informational purposes only. This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice or to diagnose and treat any health condition. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health professional with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking because of something you've heard on this podcast.